Frederick Advice Givers, episode 139. My man Danny Farrar here. He actually joined us for episode 63 on Frederick Advice Givers before we added the video aspect. CEO of SoliderFIt,
Yep.
right? Also running for county council.
At large, yep.
At large. I know Danny, we've got a bunch of mutual acquaintances. Anybody that's ever met this gentleman here has nothing but the utmost respect for you, for what you stand for what you're doing in the community, what you're doing with SoliderFIt, what you're doing politically. So kudos to you, man. I know you got a lot. You got a little daughter, right?
Yep, Riverland, my best friend, hashtag.
I love it. All right, Danny. So for that small percentage of our listenership and viewership that might not know you, give us your backstory, man.
I led a very Jerry Springer life, as I tell everybody. I'll give you the rapid rundown. I was adopted when I was 2 years old. I was molested by my brother and sister growing up. For me, that manifested itself in two ways. The first was I did horrible in school. I barely graduated. I graduated 146 out of 147. And that really stuck with me for the rest of my life. I think I still even struggle with it some. I really spent the bulk of my life, well into my 30s, just really thinking that I was stupid. And then I was also really overweight. I was almost 300 pounds at one point in time. And when you don't have any good grades and you're not athletic, the colleges aren't calling you. I came from a small town in rural America about an hour south of Richmond. And like a lot of kids that come from the lower socioeconomic end, not saying that only poor kids go into the military, but the reality is there's a preponderance of us that do. I ended up talking to my Uncle Sam and joined the United States Army. I spent 9 years in the Army. I took the first team into the Pentagon on 9/11 to remove remains from the Pentagon. It was an airplane. It wasn't a rocket. And then I also had a combat tour in Iraq from 2005 to 2006. I've gone to 50 cal and over 700 convoy missions. Came back. Transitioned horribly. There's a running joke that if you have a DD-214, bad credit, and a divorce, if you have 2 out of 3, you're a veteran. Well, I'm the veteranest one there comes. I have all 3. And then, bottomed out, wound up homeless, attempted suicide, spent 3 days in the psych ward up here at FMH. And Muhammad Ali has a famous saying. He says, it's not the mountain that gets you, it's the pebble in your shoe. And so many of us just refuse to take the shoe off and let the pebble go. So I decided to do that, let it go, and here we are.
Awesome. Wow. So it is a different background, man.
Yeah.
But thank you for what you did for our country, and that's.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. So, you've served in the military, Army.
Yep.
Specifically, it's been all over the world, from south of Richmond.
Yeah.
Why, Danny, did you choose Frederick?
You know what? Honestly, it was accidental, and
Okay.
I didn't want to come here at first. When I moved up here, I listened to what people had said. I only been to Maryland. Was the only place I'd ever been was Montgomery County, and that's where I was living. I had become a Montgomery County career firefighter, so
Okay.
I had 5 years in the fire service. And quite frankly, I just couldn't afford to live in Montgomery County anymore. And I was still young. I'm not old by no stretch now, but I was younger. I was going out partying, wanted to be close to DC, and so I didn't want to come to Frederick. But the only place I could afford to live was a condo that I got in Frederick. And I moved up here, and I just, no BS. I just fell in love with the place.
Right.
I call it the world's biggest little small town. It's just it's a pretty diverse group, especially when you go downtown Frederick. A lot of folks don't know it's a certified arts district. And based on that history of, starting as a place where during the Civil War, where there was like a nursing camp, the whole 9 yards, that feeling of community engagement, I'm not knocking anywhere else where we're at, but we've got businesses all over, and I just have not seen any other community that as a whole is as engaged as Frederick is.
Well, you say that, and you're growing out your brand with SoliderFIt. You're opening up franchises all throughout just the East Coast now, right?
Actually, we're right East Coast open. We will break out past the East Coast this year. Ohio and Wisconsin will be opening.
Awesome, awesome. So I can attest to that, that how cool and how tight Frederick is. With the Impact Club, you just recently became a member of the Impact Club. There's 15 throughout the country.
Yeah.
Frederick's the largest chapter. Like the community of Frederick definitely supports one another, supports small businesses, supports SoliderFIt. So tell us a little bit about SoliderFIt. How do you get started with SoliderFIt?
So SoliderFIt, our vision statement is to revitalize the American dream by creating a culture of civic engagement, humility, and unyielding optimism for the future. If you notice, I didn't say a single word about working out. Working out is what we do, but it's not why we do it. What I try to explain to people, and I've actually never put this out publicly before. So I'm going to take a little bit of a risk that I'm hoping that people will understand what I mean by it. I've always said amongst the cadre that SoliderFIt in a lot of ways we're a lot like the Island of Misfit Toys, and I'm one of the King Misfits. And what I mean by that is that it's not that there's anything wrong with the people or anything else, but we have so many people that walk through their doors that have been looking to find their place in something. You know, and that was the story of my life. You know,
Right.
I didn't feel like I'd even come close to finding where I belonged, who was my family or anything. I mean, into my mid-30s. And I see it over and over again that people have been trying to find not just a place to work out, but really a community to truly be involved in, and they haven't been able to find it anywhere else. So when you have that experience, I think you kind of feel like a misfit. You feel like, man, I just don't fit in anywhere. And I've seen so many of those people come in and find the place where they fit. So I think that's what separates us from other places, is that for so many people we provide that. And in a typical gym business, you know, it's all about how good you look, you know, how many, you know, girls get super dolled up before they go to the gym, dudes take 15 selfies before they do one bench press rep. You know, in our place, there's no mirrors in the facility. That's by design. You know, you get issued a shirt to wear. You can't come in your little sister sports bra and take your shirt off. You know, I haven't found any proof you burn more calories naked. And so people that have been looking for that, they find it there, and that's what separates us.
Cool. All right, Danny, want to loosen up here. So what's the last purchase that you splurged on, either for yourself, your daughter, or business-wise?
I would say it was a purchase for me and the business, but it's called the Remarkable.
What's that?
And I'll show you before you leave.
Okay.
But if you want a reason to spend $500, go Google that bad boy. It is a tablet. It's probably about this big,
Mhm.
but you can put all of your documents on it. I put the entire fiscal budget for Frederick County on it, and I still got 100 million more pages to go. And also, it writes and feels just like paper. So if you ever wrote on a computer screen before, it's like this lag time, it just doesn't work well. This is just like, and you can pick pen, pencil, side pencil, marker, whatever you want.
Huh.
And it has, like, I think 50 different templates that you can pick from, everything from graph paper to legal paper.
Okay.
I mean, it's amazing. I love it.
Cool. I'll check that out. All right. I know you're a driven man, family man. What is a hobby or interest that you do in your spare time that you enjoy doing outside of work?
I don't have any. And that probably makes me sound horrible right now. It probably makes me sound whatever, but I mean,
Well, is it spending time with your daughter?
well, I mean, I don't
Taking
consider
selfies with your daughter?
Yeah, I don't consider that as much a hobby. When I think of hobby, I think of something like drawing or collecting
Well, okay.
cards.
So what do you know, Danny? You know, you're not working this weekend. Like, you got 2 hours to burn. You guys going to go to a movie? You're going to go take a trip? You know, take a. What would you do to relax?
So honestly, this is the truth. To be very truthful with you, this is the first year that I made it a commitment to do that. The
Okay.
first real vacation I've ever taken, where there was not some other reason to take it, like I wasn't going to someone's wedding or something like that. The first real vacation that I ever took, and I stepped away from the computer, was just a couple weeks ago. We went down to the Bahamas, and you know, got to swim with the pigs, which is absolutely crazy. They paint this utopia where the pig just wants to nuzzle you. The pig is not. He's not. All they want to do is bite you or the carrots you have in it. But that's actually been something that, you know, to use a industry term, I guess, I'm trying to find that work-life balance.
Right.
But that's the first time I do it. But so much of the stuff that I do, it's a fun life. But you know, I'm doing things for veteran initiatives. So I might go to a bar to, you know, to support that. But I'm there really not so much for the bar, even though I'll have a beer, but to try to raise money for whatever cause we're doing in it. So.
Right.
Trying to get there. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's tough, man. You know, you're much farther along in your business life and entrepreneurial life than I am. You know, you're somebody that I look up to because you have franchised your model out. And like you, like finding that work-life balance, it's tough. But I mean, you've got a daughter now. You've got to make time for her, man.
Yep.
You've got to
So
make
I
time.
always try to give her at least an hour or two a day.
Right.
And when I'm there, I try to be there with her.
Right. All right, brother. So you're a driven dude. When you wake up in the morning, man, what's that burning desire that gets your blood pumping? Like,
You know, what's funny is I don't do, and some people believe this, some people don't. I don't do this for money. Like,
Right.
you eat out of a trash can, man. At least in my case, it changes you. My goal, honestly, is to try to get people like myself who, for whatever reason, life has made them feel like they weren't worth it. They're not smart enough. They're not talented enough. You know, I have literally covered in tattoos to prove to those people that you can be whatever you want to be. You can change the world. You can do anything that you want to do. You just got to show up. So, you know, very seldom will you ever see me hit a snooze button. It's normally probably either the kid kept us up all night or I'm sick. But other than that, I don't hit the snooze button because all that matters in the grand scheme of things is that you show up. Consistency beats intensity every day of the week. And so I just get out of bed to show up.
Consistency beats intensity. I like that. I like that. All right. So, Danny, what's a piece of advice that you would give a fellow entrepreneur, maybe a shortcut that you could give them that's just starting out?
I lucked into this. It was an accident. If I would have had good credit or a lot of money or could have got a big loan, I would have made SoliderFIt the most extravagant thing it could have been off of the jump. And I think that's why a lot of people end up failing, because you're going to get promised the world. When you start, you're going to get promised that the construction is going to land right at this number and you're going to be open right on this day. And you're going to have these projections and these things are going to go out. And what I've learned is that construction always goes over budget. It's never on time. And you're going to hit hiccups that you didn't foresee coming. In the military, they say something, the enemy gets a vote, right? And so every obstacle in your way gets a vote in slowing down your process to get to where you go. And you've got to understand that going in and be prepared for it.
On the flip side, Danny, what's one piece of advice that somebody might have given you along the way that ended up being totally wrong?
That we couldn't make it, that we were stupid and this wasn't going to work. I literally laughed at my face. Like they literally looked me in the face and said, this is a dumb idea, it won't work.
So how many franchises you got now?
Right now we have 8 awarded, 4 are open. We have 10 awarded, 4 are open. We hope to open 6 more.
And who are they owned by?
They are on 4 corporate locations, and then I think actually all of the ones.
Aren't they all veterans? Or
no, actually that's the only thing that sucked for us.
Okay.
I've not been able to. I have 1 veteran. I have the wife of a veteran that passed away, but we have had a hard time because you don't make a lot of money in the military.
Right.
And that's what kind of boggles my brain, to be frank with you, is that, you know, we're a relatively low entry cost franchise, and we just catch teetotal hell getting these guys and girls financed.
Right.
So I don't even know how some of these bigger things, I mean, like a 7-Eleven or a McDonald's, how we get vets in them. But veterans thrive in the franchise model. You know, hopefully as we continue to go.
Because of the rigid.
It's the SOPs, man. You give them a left and right limit, stay within these limits, and lead the way. And that's just what we're used to doing in the military.
Okay. All right, Danny, in the last 3 years, what's one decision or pivotal moment that's led you to where you are today and led us to sitting here interviewing for Frederick Advice Givers?
The decision to franchise.
Okay.
Hands down. Yeah.
How tough has that been, man?
I will tell you, honestly, it has been the hardest leadership challenge of my life.
Why is that?
And the reason it's difficult is because you're running 2 businesses simultaneously. Right. You're running your corporate business, and there's a learning curve on everybody's side, right? You know, for example, let's say that when it's just corporate, if we decide we want to run a promo, we just run a promo, right? I mean, I don't ask, you know, can I run a promo? Right. On the franchise side of the house, you know, we did that, and people were like, well, hey, we need to be let them know, and you're like, man, you know what, you're right. I didn't even think about it like that. I've just been 10 years operating this way. So it becomes a new way of trying to communicate, a new way of, because if somebody's invested and they own it, right, that's a different level of commitment. Doesn't make them better or worse, but it's a different level of commitment. And you've got to try to find a way to serve them without running their business. You want to be able to give advice, but let it still be their business. So it is a leadership challenge of trying to learn when and where to step in, when not to step in. So it's a great decision, but like anytime you try something new, it's a learning curve that comes with it.
It always is, man. All right, Danny, I've interviewed, you're 139, so you've been on here prior. I've talked to 138 other people sitting across the table or across the mic. I've got to ask questions, okay? You know, your interview, 63 was I took some nuggets out of that one, man. You always was it consistency beats intensity?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to take that out of this interview. So I love it. I'm going to use that. But I want to flip the script here. I want to give our listeners and our viewers and you, ask me a question, man, anything.
Why do you think Impact Club took off under your leadership? Because I tell you, I mean, the one thing, Leanne Little absolutely sings your praises. And I would remember when you first launched it, and I had every intention of actually jumping on back then, but with everything in the fire, we didn't. But I have watched it from the outside and seen it grow, and actually got a chance to come out to my first Impact Club.
What do you think?
And watch it. I thought it was amazing. Where my pause comes in is that I honestly felt sorry for everybody that followed that first speaker. Because, I mean, when she told her story, I was just like, I was just mesmerized. I'm like, even if you have a personal relationship with the other two nonprofits that came up, you just felt compelled. You know, I have a very strong relationship with the Mental Health Association, but listening to her speak, I was like, is this real, or is this like, you know, was this a movie that came out? So that was just, how often do you get things like that in there? And if so, man, I'm never going to have a full beer before I come out to listen.
Yeah, I mean, so it's, so part of the reason that we do the Impact Club is, one, it's to really impact the local community and help those charities. I could go on for this for 20 minutes. I'll give you the...
It's a brilliant idea.
I'll give you the quicker version. So we give these charities a platform, okay? We're basically building Impact Club throughout the country as like the TED Talks of local charities. So now we have videographers, they come in, we have audio, we have video. So now there's not a losing charity, okay? So there's a charity that doesn't, there's two charities that don't walk away with that quarter's donation, and they are still eligible to come back another quarter and present again. But now they have the footage, now they have the story, now they have the speaker, now they can go out, and when they're coming to meet with a company, they can send that piece of content, that video, to that company first. Impact Club is why it's grown. It's because of people like you, because of people like Leanne, because Leanne told you about it. It's not about me. It has nothing to do about me. It's about, you had talked earlier, like Frederick is such a good community man. People want to give back. Okay? People want to give back, but you don't think your little $100 a quarter donation is going to help anybody, Danny. But when you combine that with the 229 other members that we had at the last event, that $23,000 donation, or whatever that big amount is, does impact that charity, okay? And it's just been word of mouth. It's, you know, it's been word of mouth. It's been people telling other people, you know, I'm sure you've probably told, hey man, you got to check out that Impact Club because they've donated over $114,000 in the last year to 5 local charities. And before this, you know, I've been very fortunate where we're sitting now in the worldwide headquarters of SoliderFIt down on Tyler Court in Imesville. Like I grew up just, I can probably see my house from here where I grew up. But what a tight knit community that Frederick is. Everybody wants to give back, but they don't know how. Yeah. So the Impact Club provides them that platform of how to give back. Yeah. So yeah, man, it's been a fun ride. So I'm glad you joined, man.
Yeah.
Able to have a beer with you.
Yeah, I honestly think one of the things that makes it so unique, and I'm not, when I say next, just kind of want to illustrate a point, and I don't mean it as a belittlement because what they did was awesome, but like, you know, you even look at the radio for our calls, right? Like, you know, especially now that I'm a father, you hear that and your heart breaks, and you're like, $50 a month. Right. But like you said, like, you don't, even though they say on the radio, like, we raised 500,000 here in Frederick or whatever the number is, there's something about it, you still don't feel part of it. But the fact that everybody comes in constantly every month, every quarter they get together, they see each other again, and you're there, and you got to take part in the process of who voted, you put the process of seeing it. Right. The strength of that and building a community is just, I mean, it's an amazing, amazing idea. So, well,
so my co-founder's catch line is the strongest community in every community. Yeah. That's what he wants the Impact Club to be. And it is in Frederick. Like it's, you know, it's pretty cool. All right, brother, last 2 questions here. What failure or loss has helped mold you to set you up for your success?
Man, I would have to say that you know, it wasn't a failure, it wasn't a loss. It was getting looked at and laughed at. I spent a lot of the first years of this just getting laughed at and getting kicked over and over again. And when you get that, when you bottom out that much, and listen, we have failures. I mean, people see success and we're doing great, but we have failures every day, every month. But once you've bottomed out like that, you know what foundation you're on. So it allows you to, God, man, why is this happening right now? But I know I can get through it. So I think that prompted us to have more resolve and thicker skin as we start to grow and deal with it.
So, you're going through those times, and we all do, and obviously. So who's your rock? Like, who's your partner? Like, who did you lean on? Like, when you're getting told, hey, Danny, you can't do this. Hey, Danny, you can't get this loan. Hey, Danny, you got bad credit. Like, who's your person that you can call up and, man, Johnny, listen to this stuff.
It's morphed over time.
Okay.
Dave was the first person that didn't laugh at me, the first person to believe in me, and I've always run stuff through Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not to demean that relationship at all. We talk all the time. There's something, I don't know if it's because you're married. I don't know if it's because I've just, part of the point of contention that me and Jen have had, we're both very type A personalities, right? And learning how to deal with that. There are times that I've went against her gut. And whether it's been the benefit of doubt for somebody or just thinking something to go. And I have learned to never go. She's never been wrong. Not one time. When she looks at me and goes, in my gut, I just,
right.
And now because of that, I just don't feel comfortable with the decision until I've ran it through her.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's good. How long have you been married?
We've been married, I'll be going on our 4th year in September. We've been together 6.
Cool.
But she moved in 2 weeks after she met me. So,
there you go.
There was no feeling out process
there. There you go. What's Jen do?
Jen, I'm super proud of Jen, man. She manages Bellwether Insurance.
Okay.
So they have 2 offices, and they're growing that like wildfire. And then when I stepped down to run for county council because we didn't want a conflict of interest, she helped me start Platoon 22, and now she is the president of Platoon 22. So she continues to go in there, and for the most part, she does everything. The only time I actually come in and do anything anymore is when it's to go talk specifically to a room full of vets, just because, depending on what that conversation is, having that mutual shared background experience, it just sometimes makes it a better fit. But hell, Jen can run circles around me and what it takes to get through the VA.
All right, so let's talk about that real quick, Danny. Platoon 22. I know you got a big heart. You give back to your brothers, right, and sisters. I guess is that how you refer to it? Okay. Yeah. And you guys have been, Platoon 22 has been nominated multiple times for the Impact Club, and it's only a matter of time until you're going to be one of those ones up there on stage presenting to our membership. So talk about Platoon 22. What do you guys do? Who do you help? Who do you serve?
So really the main thing is to combat against veteran suicides. When you look at the stats in this country, and I always ask people this rhetorical question: did you agree with sending our men and women overseas to fight for you? And I always tell them, I don't want to see your hands. I don't care. I'm not here to try to change your mind one way or the other. What I'm here to tell you is that if you agreed to send those men and women overseas to fight, then in my opinion, you entered into a social contract with them to take care of them when they came back. If you didn't agree with sending them overseas, it doesn't matter either. Because what ends up happening is when you look at, in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, heading into their 17th year, longest war our country's been a part of, we've lost 8,325 men and women to direct combat action in both of those fronts. Back home, at a rate of 20 to 22 a day, whichever one you want to cite, we've lost over 124,000 men and women to suicide in that same time period. So what we exist to do is to be able to combat against veteran suicide, and we do this in a couple different ways. One thing is we're always there for peer support. I've gotten calls and gotten out of my bed at 1 o'clock in the morning to go meet a vet somewhere and sit down and have a conversation with them. We've in a process of partnering with 22 Kill. You see the 22 ring on there. We've ended up meeting those guys pretty much right after the bat, created a relationship with them. They're the largest nonprofit in our sector that in our sector of nonprofits, on the 22 side of things. So there's a lot of resources that we get from them. For example, I just recently took a veteran out to Texas and took him to the Center of Brain Health so they could get actual analysis on the brain, and took him through special yoga training to help him deal with the PTS, the anxiety, the ability to sleep, and then just gave him a little bit of, sometimes what we need is to pull those guys out and let them just break away from life for a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't take slow boats back from war anymore like there was in World War II. Now, you're in country on Tuesday, you're back home on Thursday. There's no, for lack of a better term, detox, calm down period, One of the things that we ultimately want to be able to do, we funded the Crisis Call Center at Mental Health Association, I think to the tune of, I don't have the hard number on me, but I think it's $10,000 or $15,000. And our next big things is we have a horse experience that's coming in, so horse therapy, that's going to get launched very, very soon. And ultimately, our goal is to build a veteran resource center here in Frederick County that will provide a myriad of different things for people. Everything from being able to come in to have a crisis counselor through another nonprofit that we have a relationship with, Carry the Load, and then also to be able to provide different types of therapy. Because there's different strokes for all folks, right? Some people want to plant flowers. Some people want to paint. Some people want to have a musical therapy. Some people want to sit in and have group therapy and talk. Some people don't want to be in that at all. And then the one thing, anecdotally, that I have seen, and I truthfully, I have nothing to back this up stat-wise, but it's just what I've witnessed, is that every veteran that I've dealt with that was struggling was going through relationship marital issues. And that has probably been, and I've talked to friends about this, that the PTS probably leads to the marital problems, and then the marital problems exasperates the PTS, and you become a self-licking ice cream cone, right? And you just continue to over and over again keep ratcheting it up until one thing breaks, and then, people confuse suicide. Suicide isn't my dog left me. Suicide isn't I lost my job. Suicide isn't my wife split. Suicide is I was molested as a kid. I had the Pentagon, combat tour. I lost my job. My wife left me. And every one of us, we have different capacities for sustaining, right? And all of us, you, me, him, everyone here has a breaking point. A lot of folks like to pretend that they don't, but every one of us has a breaking point. And at some point in time, you just get too much, and it's that last little thing, and that's when it all falls apart.
So you're there to support them so they don't get to that last little thing.
Or to try to catch them right when it happens.
Right. Awesome. All right. So those of us that don't have a military background, and I first of all, thank you for what you've done for our country. Significance of 22. You've got platoon 22, which is yours, and you've got 22 kills. So what's the significance of the 22?
The original stat that came out, it actually isn't anything to do with the military itself.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's, when the original report came out, 22 veterans a day were committing suicide.
Okay.
Now, there was another report that came out about a year or two ago, I think, that stated that the number is 20. There are a lot of people that will...
Well, it's either 20 or 22 too many, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's too...
Yeah, and the thing is, there's certain states don't report it, okay? The other side of the house is that when you look at it is that a suicide could be a suicide, but if there's not a note, they won't classify it as a suicide. For example, a veteran could have OD'd, right? But what caused them to get to that point, right? And was that OD intentional? Now, you won't know if there's no note, but for sake of insurance, people won't put it out, and there's such a stigma associated with suicide. My brother committed suicide, and I remember the chaplain coming in and sitting down and telling me and trying to explain to me what were the possibilities that my brother might not have went to hell. And you go through that whole scenario, and it's part of the reason why I think that the religious institutions need to be some of the institutions, some of the front runners, and that has this explanation, because people just burden themselves with the guilt and they won't get the help that they need for the fear of what it may say about them. So a lot of folks don't know suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in America. It is actually I'd have to check my number, maybe it's either second or third leading cause of death in America for ages 15 to 34. Think about that. The second or third, I'm pretty positive it's the second. I think the only thing that trumps it is accidents. It's the second leading cause of death in America for our young people, and no one talks about it.
Right. All right, back to SoliderFIt.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, man. And it doesn't have to be SoliderFIt. So where do you, Danny, see yourself in 3 years and 10 years?
In 3 years, I'm hoping my wife has finally found a house that we can live in that she doesn't want to move from. I hate moving. But, in 3 years, I hope that I hope to be on the county council. I honestly don't, I'll never say never. I honestly don't think I'll ever run for anything beyond that.
So what's your why behind that?
That's actually pretty simple, and I'm just going to be very frank with this. And I have a huge paranoia of ever being a douchebag. So when I say what I say next, I don't mean a douchebag, and I hope people truthfully understand this. I'm not doing it for the money. It's $22,000 and some change a year. Quite frankly, I could do something else and make more money than that with less time involvement. So it's not the money. Could I use the money? Yeah. Who can't use an extra $22,000? But it's not motivating me. It's not to be more well known or be more popular. Again, I'm about as popular as I want to be. Right, I can't operate with the relationships that I want to be able to have. I can't give it.
Right.
There's just not enough time for it. I'm running because when I opened in Frederick County, it was the easiest place we ever had to open. Right, wrong, or indifferent, people can like it or not. Montgomery County is daggone near bankrupt me 3 separate occasions when it comes to opening places. And I really believe if you've ever watched the movie A Knight's Tale, one of my favorite movies, Heath Ledger in it says, "I just want to change my stars." And small business allows you to change your stars. It's the backbone of this economy and of this country. So I don't want people that want to start a business to have to take 15 daggone trips to the permitting office. We should be able to streamline that. Business is rapidly advancing so fast. I think we can just go with nonprofit, right? The Impact Club, it couldn't have existed 10 years ago, right? Not the way it's doing now. So the way that everything's evolving, we've got people come in for permits on the book that they can't permit them because it's never existed. And instead of helping them, we look at this person and say, you should go do business elsewhere. That's absurd. That's absolutely absurd. And the other side of it is, again, it goes back to, I don't come from pedigree. I'm not a known name person. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm not necessarily a choir boy, I want people to be able to look at me and say, you know what, if that dude can do it and he can step in, that I can do it. I can be more in this process than simply a person that checks a bottle.
Well, what I know about you and what people have told me about you is that when you say something, that's going to happen. And I think that's, we're not going to get into, well, we can get into a political debate here, whether you want it or not. But if, I've heard specific instances of you taking care of other people, and you stood up and you took initiative to protect those people. We can talk off camera about what I heard about you, and everything I've ever heard is Danny's a stand-up guy. Danny tells you something, and it's going to happen. So
I try, man. One thing, and I have a saying when I talk at any of the political stuff, I ain't nobody's savior. Right. I don't have all the answers. There's plenty of people that are way, way smarter than I am. But I took some advice, and since this is Advice Givers, I'll pass this on to you because I think it's a pretty good story. And it's something that I've noticed doesn't happen in politics next to never. They asked Nelson Mandela, who is universally across the world considered a great leader, asked him, said, what do you attribute your leadership to? And Nelson said, he attributed it to his father. He said, when I was younger, my father was a village chieftain. I'm probably screwing that up, but we'll go with that. A village chief, and as a result, he used to go around and always speak with the elders. And I always noticed 2 things. The first is that they always sat in a circle, and the second is my father always spoke last. And I've seen, as I've went to these different hearings and listened and talked to people, I've watched people very, very quick to run to the front and talk. And listen, I have no problem talking. I can talk the horns off a billy goat if we want to sit here and have a conversation. But when it comes to understanding complex issues, when it comes to understanding the different perspectives that people have on it, and that's governance, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we stick in Frederick, what Thurmont needs is different than what the city needs, is different than what Urbana needs, and Brunswick, and so forth and so on. Governance is being able to bring people together and be very honest with them. You got to sacrifice something, boss. You can't have it all right? But guess what? They got to sacrifice something too. So let's come together and see what it is that we can work with, and let's get to a common, because that's all it is compromise. But so many people they think leadership is simply talking first and guiding the conversation, and it's not. Because if you listen, you get the benefit of everyone in the room smarter than you, everyone feels respected, and when the decision is made, everyone has buy-in.
Cool. Danny, I
Always
appreciate
good seeing you,
I
sir.
appreciate doing this today.
See you at the next quarter, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
May, well, it'll in May. See you in May. All right. Listeners, Danny Farrar. Right? Did I say it right?
You said it right.
Danny Farrar. Episode 139, Frederick Advice Givers, and we are out.